combat is arguably the best part of Rise of the Argonauts. Slaying treacherous scum and mythical creatures who stand in your way is actually a lot of fun. Your arsenal includes a sword, a mace and a spear that you can switch at any moment to perform combos with light and heavy attacks. There are also special moves.
The castle is brimming with all manner of vampire and monsters, some of which clearly answering the grim question of what happened to the daughters of Falkenberg. The two split up to look for Count Voiku, and in a crumbling tower we find a parchment that describes a holy staff, believed to be the only thing capable of taking down the leader of monsters.
2003. 3 years after the release of Stadium 2, the GameCube has hit store shelves, and it's time for Pokémon to take center stage. This was the first project headed up by a group of devs put together by Nintendo to develop Pokémon games for home consoles.
At E3 2008, Nintendo officially announced Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars for their DS, and that it would retain the gameplay that made the franchise such a hit with its own custom engine to suit the console's limitations. And believe it or not, based on the comments from 2008, reaction was mostly negative. Yeah, really, it's kind of funny to read this nonsense in hindsight.
Animations this time around look a lot more heroic. Cole strikes these poses when in the air and when landing on a ground that resemble a pose that Spider-Man would strike, and it really gives you this idea that Cole is a superhuman. His movements and actions are far more exaggerated, and it made a lot of sense. When compared to the first game, his actions were a little more rigid and stiff.
He got on a run where he pulled about 15 seconds ahead of the record by the end of episode 4. There was still a long way to go, but he kept nailing tough tricks. Spiderless in 6-1, speeder skip.
But the good news is that this sequel does address more or less all of the original game's other shortcomings, all while massively expanding on it in ways expected and otherwise. The basic gameplay mechanics are mostly unchanged. The core verb of the game is still run, and the central mechanic is still the boost.
So let's talk about the graphics and some other strangeness. When it comes to art direction, there's a lot I like about the game. All the Coalition vehicles are industrial brick shithouses, but there's still a sleekness to them. You get the sense they're designed to be super utilitarian rather than anything pleasing in mind. Plus, any little greeble bits and pieces would likely be ripped off by Kharak's hellish sandstorm.
I like this mechanic, but it's used way too often. It gets annoying when you feel like you have to follow every race with a defense race. I think that the developers realized that Most Wanted was way too long of a game, so they tried to scale this one back, but overcorrected and made it way too short, and then they tried to pad the game out a little bit by cranking the defense race frequency way too high.
The music, by far, is the most memorable aspect of the game. The developers really showcased the Super Nintendo's audio capabilities because these are fantastic versions of classic rock songs. Mr. Pavlish was correct, and then if you hear rock music playing, it makes you want to put the pedal to the metal and drive just a little bit crazier.
The game introduction opens showing Kazuya as the head of the Mishima family, Zaibotsu. We also see Heihachi emerging on top of the cliff, having clearly survived, which is interesting because this is the first of a number of examples of Heihachi's raw strength in the series, because unlike his son, he is not imbued with supernatural demonic powers.
After being available for over a year, only 100,000 Jags had managed to claw their way into people's homes. To their credit, Atari saw the problem and tried their best to rectify it. They kicked off 1995 with as many announcements as they could muster.
Finally, it's hard to claim that Gothic 3 has a similar feel to its predecessors. The world design and atmosphere in the first two games felt very grounded and bleak, but just from colour palette alone, Gothic 3 establishes a more vibrant and fantastical feeling to its world. A good way to simply illustrate this is through the visual design of the many herbs you can pick up, which now come in a rainbow assortment of different colours and look nothing like what you might see in the last game or in our own reality.